We're all here. We're all identified. Onegashimasu. I hope everyone is good. Thank you for all your help, Prakash and John. I'll read tonight. The first, Shokushu, our motto. Let us experience universal mind that loves and protects all creation and helps all things grow and develop. To know the unification of our mind and body and be one with the universe is the ultimate purpose of our study. The four major principles to experience the unification of mind and body. Number one, we rest in the one point in the lower abdomen. Number two, we are completely relaxed. Number three, our weight is naturally underside. Number four, ki extends infinitely in all directions. Tonight, our subject for discussion is the 5 principles of educating children. Here at the Shinshinkan Dojo in Maui, I don't teach children. I test the children, but I don't teach them in the regular classes. We have several very fine children's teachers, Lynn Curtis, Joni Jackson, Melly Stokesbury, and others who do such a good job. I don't want to get in the way. However, when I travel to teach, I very often teach children in different dojos in Hawaii. And then when I'm going to Europe or the United States, now that my wife, Lynn, travels with me to Europe, if there's going to be a children's class, then I ask her to teach it because she's so very good at it. But in the old days, before she started traveling with me to Europe, I always taught the children's classes. And I found, interestingly, in my opinion, my experience, that I learn a lot about teaching adults by teaching children. We'll get into that more specifically when I read the 5 principles. We cover them individually, but generally speaking, as long as I don't underestimate the intelligence of the children, and as long as I don't overestimate the intelligence of the adults, it's almost the same. Of course, with children, it's a little bit different because they don't have the capability to conceptualize. But if you bear with me here, in an adult class, the easy ability for adults to conceptualize very often gets in the way of their experiential understanding. An adult will think they have a good understanding of something just by being able to conceptualize it, but they actually don't experience it. So when I give them a correction, they often say, I know that already. Believe it or not, adults actually say that to me. And when they do, it means that they're just thinking they know. They know in their thinking mind, but they're being corrected because they're not doing it. And with kids, because they cannot intellectualize so much, they're very good at just doing it. They're very easy to teach that way. When I test the children, maybe we have 12 in the front row and 12 in the back row. We usually have 23 or 24 or 25 students testing kids. I go down the row, and these kids understand unbendable arm. They understand unraisable arm. They understand unraisable body. They understand standing with mind and body unified. It's always amazing to me how stable and committed these kids are. And I think a big part of that is because they don't waste any time trying to think about it, trying to figure it out. They just do what you tell them. So it's a wonderful thing, teaching kids, very rewarding in that way. Okay, so before we proceed with the principles, I want to take just a few moments to do some key breathing. So everyone sit up straight, please, and close your eyes. Okay. All right, can we begin, please, with Sayaka Reasoner reading the 5 Principles of Educating Children in Japanese.
幼児教育の5原則。1、楽しく遊ばせる工夫。2、絶対に怪我、過ちをさせない。3、一つの動作も必ず成長に結びつけ、プラスの言葉を使う。4、して良いことと悪いことをはっきり教える。5、悪い時にはプラスに叱る。
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we have the 5 old translation principles and 5 new translation principles. I'll cover them one at a time. Number 1, the old translation. Be resourceful in letting them play and enjoy what they learn. Number 1, new. Let children have fun while learning. Old, number 2, never allow them to injure themselves or make serious mistakes. Number 2, new, never let them get injured. Number 3, old, always relate each exercise to their growth and use positive words. Number 3, new, recognize all progress and acknowledge with positive words. Number 4, old, make it perfectly clear what behavior is good and what is bad. Number 4, new, set boundaries clearly. And number 5, old, when they misbehave, scold them firmly, but with a positive attitude. And number 5, have a positive mind when you correct them. So very different this time, very different way of saying the same thing. But I think that's important. Of course, the first one, let children have fun while learning, is really let children have fun while you do all these other 4 or 5 things. Of course, while they're learning, children need to have fun. Heck, adults need to have fun. If adults don't have fun, they won't come back to the class. So same thing with children. We have to find a way for it to be fun for them. Children, maybe we have some freedom that we don't have with adults. So in a sense, we can give them a kind of playfulness, childlikeness. We can take advantage of their childlikeness and allow them to be more playful and have more fun even than adults. So this part is very important. Number two, never let them get injured. Now, I think I want to say that I have had a lot of experience watching other people teach children, not so much here in our dojo, but also in other dojos, or at least watching the habits of the children while I'm teaching them that other people have taught. So one thing I've noticed is sometimes having fun means different things in different cultures. I think it's important that they have fun, but it's also very important that we don't let the children run the class. We don't let them get out of control. We don't let them, we don't want the tail to be wagging the dog. So they're free to have fun, but we never want them to be injured. And again, I have to say, the same rules apply for adults. You know, adults get injured quite often when they're having too much fun. Too much fun means forgetting to keep mind, body unified, right? So sometimes when we're teaching children, we want to, one of the things we want to teach them is how to have fun without being injured, how to have fun without losing 1 point, how to maintain mind, body unification while having a good time doing something silly. Now, this is very important. Number 3, recognize all progress and acknowledge it with positive words. So progress, of course, is happening in every class, with every student, and actually at every moment. Progress is an ongoing thing. It's not like once a week we have to remind them that they're making progress, and isn't that a good thing? I think it's more like in the way that we address the children as we're talking with them and teaching them, we're constantly supporting their every little moment of progress and acknowledging it in a positive way. Can you see how this is also the same thing that we do with adults? We all like to be reminded that we are progressing. And we like to be reminded in such a way that it makes us feel good about ourselves and about the process that we're going through, which sometimes for kids or adults is very painful, very difficult, very challenging. So this is a very important part of our progress, part of our training. You know, Toi Sensei, Koichi Toi Sensei, both, and Shinichi Toi Sensei are very, very skillful at being able to constantly support the students around them. So that you always feel, when you're with Shinichi Sensei, don't you always feel that he has your best interest in mind, and he's always positively uplifting you. This is not easy to do, and he learned this from his father very well, I think. Set boundaries clearly. Okay, so actually what we've been talking about so far is setting boundaries clearly. You as the teacher have to make yourself known from day one, from moment number 1 in the dojo, that you are the boundary setter. You are the official boundary setter. No one else in there sets boundaries, only you. And you have to be very clear and very positive about what those boundaries are. And if we do that as teachers, the children will respect it. Now, for sure, just like with adults, boundaries have to be repeated again and again and again. You can do this, but only up to this point. And you never do that. We make these things clear. With adults, we write it all out for them and give them a training manual full of etiquette, so they see what the boundaries are that they're not allowed to go beyond, or that they want to be following. Maybe with children, we don't write it out for them because they stop having fun when they have to start reading usually. So we give them a different kind of instruction. So maybe even with children, we have to remind them more often, but we're always reminding them, we never slip. We always remind them what the boundaries are, what the limitations are in their practice. And then operating within limitations, children begin to learn that freedom Doesn't mean free to do whatever you want to do. Freedom means free not to have to do something to hurt someone or insult someone or be crazy and hurt yourself. Freedom means free not to do. That's very difficult even for adults to learn. You look at our society. People still think freedom is to do. Freedom means that you can do whatever you want to do. No, freedom means not being a slave to what is not useful in your practice. So this same thing we have to teach children. It's just that we teach it to them a little bit differently. And the last one is have a positive mind when you correct them. That's very much like recognize the progress and acknowledge with positive words. but it does, you notice we eliminated the word scold them. I think that's unnecessary use of a word. Words have power. And you don't want to have in your mind that I need to scold these children, but I'm going to do it in a nice way. It's like I'm going to whack them good, but I'm going to just not hurt them when I whack them. No, emotionally, we don't want to whack them. We want to support them. So we say maybe correct them. And even as we correct them, the same thing with adults, even when we correct them, we are doing it in a supportive manner. You know, Maui sensei used to tell us something that was interesting. He always said, when I'm touching a student and pushing them along, I'm trying to support them to go in the right direction. But sometimes they think I'm trying to dominate and control them. So he said, how I do that is very, very important. You know, we have this exercise in Aikido where someone stands next to you and you put your hand in their back and you move forward together. I think you've all done this exercise. So you all know it can be very difficult. Even though our best intention is to be positive and supportive, somebody inside us doubts that we're going to be able to do that and is sure they're not going to be able to move the person. So we try to push the person to get them to move. And that, of course, has the opposite effect. So it's not just just like with training, when we're teaching, it's not just having the conceptual idea, we have this rule, you must have a positive mind when you correct them. That's an experiential thing. In other words, like I'm always saying, you have to be what it is that you're teaching. You can't teach something, particularly to children, that you are not experiencing and representing in that very moment. If they don't see it, they won't believe it. You cannot just tell them. Okay, so those are the 5 principles. Why don't we, we have time now, so why don't we have Prakash issue everyone into their rooms, and I will see you in 10 minutes, and you can have questions for me. Okay? Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Sensei. Good evening.
Hello, Jack.
Our question was about number 2, keeping everyone safe, keeping all the kids safe. And in particular, when you have a single child who's maybe bullying or causing, potentially causing harm to the other class members, what to do in that situation?
Okay. Well, we were talking about setting boundaries. Now, of course, children come from all different kind of backgrounds. I mean, they may have no boundaries in the home situation that they come from, so they don't know any better, or they may be being mistreated at home. That's often the case with a bully. So he or she ends up trying to take it out on the other kids in the dojo because maybe he's a little bigger or a little bit older. So that kind of person, I think you have to take them aside and speak to them privately and maybe even with their parent and make it known that that's not acceptable, that kind of activity. And if we do that, I think that you can gradually change the way the person is approaching the other students. And of course, during the class, you always stop and don't allow that to take place because kids can hurt each other, not just from having too much fun, but in the way that you're suggesting. So we have to be very strict about that. And like I say, you can start out by trying to control it during the class, but sooner or later, you very well may have to speak to the child separately and maybe even with his parent or her parent to make sure that you have a support from the parents, that they understand what you're doing. Because sometimes the kids will go home and tell stories to try and boost their position. They're not always so truthful about, particularly if they're a bully, about their activities. So you want to be sure that it's out in the open in front of the other kids and that it's out in the open in front of the parent and that it's clear to everybody. Okay?
Okay, Jack,
Jack, could you say who else was in your group?
Yeah, my group was Crystal and Joelle.
Okay, thank you. So Myrta, can you unmute yourself and ask your question and let us know who was in your group?
Good evening, everyone. In my group, we had Andre from Russia and John from Maui. And the question was a little bit like the last question, actually. How do you teach naughty or unfocused kids? And maybe the focus could be on unfocused. Thank you.
How do you teach unfocused kids to become focused? Is that what your question is?
Not yet. You could say it like that, but the question was originally, how do you teach unfocused kids?
Oh, okay. How do you teach unfocused kids? Well, of course, you're not going to teach them to focus overnight. And without focus, they can't learn. So unfocused means unable to concentrate, unable to pay attention. And as we've learned in all of our practice, the key to learning anything is learning how to pay attention. It can be very frustrating if you're teaching children who are completely unfocused. Of course, children tend to be a bit less attentive, maybe, than adults. Of course, you have to find the key to having the majority of them enjoy paying attention and being a part of the class. I know that I've talked with my wife, Lynn, about this, and she experiences kids like this all the time. And if they're not able to pay attention at all, she makes them go sit in the back of the class on the bench until they can calm down and pay attention. And then she lets them come back on the mat. So that a little bit is like clarifying the boundaries of the class. If you want to be in this class, you're in this class to learn to pay attention. That intention of the class is very important to be clear to the children what they're here to do. They're not here to learn to hit people effectively. They're not really even here to learn to keep people from hitting them effectively. They're here to learn to be in a state of attention as much as possible and enjoy doing that. And so enjoy learning. So kids in our dojo, we notice that the kids that remain training from 6 years old all the way into high school are like straight A students in high school because they've learned to pay attention. And maybe the ones that couldn't learn to pay attention maybe didn't stay around. And that you have to be ready for that too. You cannot plan on being successful with every student if success is you know, your idea of success is making them all pay attention. I think you just love them and support them and do the best you can with them. And some of them won't be able to take it, but the ones that do will really benefit. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Lillian Paiva Sensei, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Let us know who was in your group.
Aloha, everybody. In our group, there was Sayaka Riesner from Maui and Bill from Chicago and myself. And our question was regarding number 4. Is there a standard for the boundaries?
Well, yes and no. Of course, there's obvious standards that we all agree on no matter what culture we're in. You don't hit anyone. You don't tease anyone. You're not unkind to anyone. You don't mistreat anyone. You pay attention to what the teacher says and you do what the teacher says when the teacher says to do it, not later. So I think those kind of things are the same everywhere. But there surely are cultural differences. For instance, we start our children at 6 years old here. And usually in the United States, in the Western culture, it's 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. In Japan, they start them at 3 years old. And we can't do that here. It doesn't make sense because they don't have the ability, they don't have the discipline to pay attention. Whereas in Japan, they're taught at home from birth, I guess, to pay attention and to sit quietly and to listen. And that is such a cultural imperative that is passed on to the children that you can actually start them, you can actually start teaching them at age 3. So headquarters in Japan and all the different dojos, they usually start them at 3 years old, is from what I hear. So that's an example of a cultural difference where the boundaries change. I can't tell you all of them, but I've watched enough kids training in different countries that I see, oh, this is different. So you have to adjust accordingly. It's like, just like with adults, their sense of humor is quite different. And I had to change my whole way of delivering jokes when I got to Europe because each country, they just sat and looked at me when I told them a very funny joke. So I had to learn to it's a different kind of sense of humor in all these different places. Spain one way, Holland another way, Germany another way. Okay, so that's my answer.
Okay, Ilaria, unmute yourself.
Hi, Sensei. My
Hi,
group,
Ilaria.
myself and Prakash McKay Sensei. Our question was when we're teaching children the basics, just the very basics, how to bow onto the mat, how to sit down, how to stand up, kohotento, sitting and bowing. How can we keep their interest engaged in these things that that take a lot of repetition to start to learn, and so that it becomes a habit for them?
That's a good question. I think that what I see the most successful teachers doing is the structure of the class includes always attention to those things, but it's not the whole class. So in other words, we don't do that kind of repetitive basics over and over again. with kids, you've got to put some playful movement in between where they can get up and move around and feel a little bit freer. And then, of course, an aspect of that can be how to stand up and sit down properly. Even how to close your eyes, you know, and kids are so bright about this. I'm amazed at how disciplined the kids are in the classes and that Lynn teaches, for instance. You know, they're just amazing. And Joni, same thing. And by the time Melly gets them, Melly Sensei teaches the high school class. So she's teaching all these kids from 12 years to like 18 years. And so they've already learned a lot, but they're still kids. And so it's still a different way of teaching. So there's one way of teaching up to 12 years old, and it starts to change a little bit in high school. And then of course, with adults, it changes even further. So I think the key with kids is always keeping it lively and interspersing it with different kinds of activities, and then never leaving those repetitive basics out. When you come in, you know, okay, when I step on the mat, I bow. If I'm late for class, I stand by the side of the mat and wait. No excuses. If they don't do it, you make them go back and do it. So everyone gets the idea, oh, it'll be embarrassing if I don't do the right thing. So we can use that to our advantage when teaching children and adults. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Lynn Curtis, Sensei?
Yes.
Good evening. I was in a group with Kayomi from Lokahi and Tracy Reasoner from Maui. And I think everybody so far has brought up some really good questions and points. We could not really distill any distinct question. You know, that we talked a lot about, you know, maybe cultural differences, you know, to take into account, you know, like you mentioned with your telling your jokes, you know, and how you would take all the principles and have to make, you know, minor adjustments, culturally speaking. So we didn't have a real, we weren't able to come up with a real burning question.
All right, well, you're a very accomplished children's teacher. So why don't I ask you a question?
Okay.
Okay, so what is your relationship, or what do you feel the relationship of the teacher should be with the parents of the kids? Is it something you have to generate yourself,
yeah,
or is something you have to expect? Or tell us about your experience with parents.
I have learned to, I always address them as Mr. and Mrs. I keep it very professional, and there are some you know, I follow the principles. I keep it positive and supportive. Never bring up personal issues, or, you know, probing questions about, you know, idiosyncrasies, or, you know, anything like that. I keep it very, you know, very professional. And,
Okay.
you know, of course, I have to ask for their support once in a while. You know, I'm having you know, I need help managing this kind of behavior, you know, what do you suggest? You know, different things like that. That's come up. But I'm very careful about how I frame it, and the language that I use, and because I want to maintain. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to maintain an open, you know, supportive relationship both ways.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You know, we still have a few more moments. And rather than me saying anything more, I'd like to hear, we've got so many children's teachers here, accomplished children's teachers. Does anybody want to say anything? Like, for instance, Olaf Schubert? Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Sensei. Of course, I would like to make a comment. Well, my teaching children days are a little bit a while ago, and now my student Peter is teaching the children, but I test them. So, and at the summer camp also, we had the experience of having kids and adults in the same class. So
did that change the way that you taught?
Not at all, because the kids, you know, this special 11-year-old from Stuttgart, you know him. I'm not going to mention the name. He's at every seminar. So and if they join this environment, that was also what came up in our group with Linda Sensei and Vitali, that at a certain age, I let them merge with the adults, and it's not 18, it's much earlier, like 12, 13, 14. Whenever I see that they gain more from getting the inspiration from the adults, you know. In the old days, when I was still not in Ki Aikido yet, there was more focus on self-defense, and from this thinking, they need to train with adults, because the aggressor most often will be bigger, larger, stronger, whatever. So if they don't get in contact with the older and more substantial ukas, they might not even understand that relaxation actually does work. You know, if you only have small kids to throw around, it's the same for adults, by the way. I think they need this experience. Once in a while, we do a firm holding, like Shinichi Sensei is doing with us often. And I say, okay, hold firmly and stay relaxed, and you can still move. So, because in the back of our minds is this doubt that relaxation, but does it really work when someone holds me, you know? And with kids, this is always in the back. I think.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, I have to apologize. I thought that Lynn was the last group, and it turns out there's still got a couple of groups. So I want to take the time to hear each group. So please, next person, Christoph.
Okay, good evening, good morning, everybody. Christoph, in group 2, there was Sally, Gloria, and myself. So from what the parents say, children have the choice between a wide range of sport and cultural activities, with many involving teams and competition. But there is value in being part of teams, in pursuing competitive goals. So Sensei, do you think that when teaching Aikido to children, there's usefulness in developing a sense of group through specific games, possibly, and competition too? Possibly by emphasizing the importance of taking tests or something else.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you. So did you say that your question is it useful to teach them competition?
Well, yes. The point was when we talk to parents, they emphasize the fact that the children have a very wide range of choices. It's not only Aikido they can play soccer, they can play. So these activities for them is also interesting for their development because it involves teams, activities in teams, and it has to do with competition, winning the championship and earning a medal, etc. And my question to you, because there is value, and my question, our question to you is, do you see when teaching Aikido to children some usefulness in still keeping in mind the idea of developing group activities and emphasizing the usefulness of competition, maybe through by underlining the importance of taking tests and growing, etc.
Yeah, okay. I think I get it. You know, I'm always curiously entertained when I see the coach, a famous coach, teaching the players to be good sportsmen, sportsmanlike conduct, and then get out there and kill them. You know, so the juxtaposition of these two sort of ideas comes from controlling the impulse to compete unfairly in some way. So I think learning competition is a good thing for kids as long as it's not learning to win at all costs, but learning how to share with other people. I recently saw, maybe everybody saw this, it was on the internet somewhere. There was a long distance runner race, a marathon, 26 miles. And there was a small Ethiopian man who was winning. And there was a large Caucasian man behind him, almost catching him. And they're right at the finish line. And because the Ethiopian man didn't speak English, he didn't understand the signage, and he stopped before the finish line. And the Caucasian could have easily passed him up and won, but he didn't. He pushed him forward and let him win. And afterward, a journalist interviewed the Howley guy, the Caucasian. And so why didn't you take advantage of that and win? And he said, oh, but how would I ever live with myself if I did that to him? He just doesn't speak English, so he didn't see the sign correctly. He easily won. Everybody saw that he won. What kind of human being would I be if I did that? Well, so this was very moving to me, as I think anybody who hears this story feels. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That a human being, that we as human beings have the capacity, not just to compete with others, but in a way that winning is not the final determination of the quality of the human being, but rather the way we compete, the way we win. And I think that particularly with children, because that's where they learn these principles, it's very important. And in fact, I'm so glad you asked this question, because I think it should be one of the principles, you know, that we learn how to compete fairly, how to compete with honor as children. So yes, let's give them ranks and let's have them, you know, have a sense of winning as a team, like in Taigi competition and so forth, but teach them the honor of what really counts in this life. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Was there any other group?
There's one group, Melly Stokesbury Sensei.
Oh, okay.
Okay. In our group were Vernon and Sue and Jan from Kauai. Vernon from Lokahi and Jan from Kauai. And the question was, if you are starting a brand new class and all the kids in it are new kids coming to it, perhaps you're establishing a new class, how do you then, like, what are some tips about establishing the etiquette of the dojo?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You know, it's not something you can do on the first day. You know, we teach this, Tracy Wiesner Sensei teaches this introductory course. Well, he has 4 classes to you know, to get it all out. And it's impossible. It's just impossible. So on that first day, you're going to begin is what you're going to do. And you're going to give them an example, one simple example of mind-body unification, and give them one simple example of etiquette, how to bow, just how to do sitting bowing, one simple thing. And then through the course of their training, little by little by little, we begin to introduce them to more and more and more. But always, I think, again, similar to what I was saying to Christoph, I think from the beginning, with children, we have to be sure that they understand what they're doing here in this class. Because they have their own ideas. You know, they watch the jumping, kicking, hitting stuff on television. I know my grandchildren do. And, you know, they want to imitate that. So they need to understand, you know, that this is Shin Shin Tuitsu Aikido, mind and body unified Aikido. This is Aikido for fun and growing together, but it's all about connection with other people and honorable connection, how to be true, how to be a true friend. You know, those are the things that really count for kids in school. You know, and of course, it all takes paying attention. So that's the bottom line. That's your bottom line boundary. You must be paying attention. So I think that it's a little bit at a time is how we go about everything. Not too much at once. Okay? You know, I really enjoyed this tonight. Thank you. I like this format. I hope you do too. Yeah, I do feel a little pressed for time before, during, and after the rooms. I know that Shinichi Toi Sensei takes 2 hours to do what we're doing in 1 hour. So sometimes we may expect, if you don't mind, to run over a little bit so that we give everybody a chance to speak. All right? Thank you very much. Thank you, Prakash, for your help.
Omari,
and patience. Okay, bye-bye.